a lot of people and ask them, what have their challenges been? And so she's going to tell us about some of the challenges that she discovered in those conversations and what can we do about them.
Do you know how to enable presenting mode here?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, this works.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Chhavi. I'm a postdoc at CMU. I'm now a fellow at Simons, and I'm very glad to give this talk here. So this is joint work with Kevin, who's the lead author, and Virginia, who's one of the organizers of.
So just turn the mic.
Okay, so I'll talk about this paper. I'm a postdoc at CMU, and this is joint work with Kevin, who's the lead author, and Virginia, who's one of the co-organizers of the bootcamp and the workshop in general. So yeah, I think we know by now that cross-device federated learning is widely adopted in industry. Today we have huge teams from Google, and we had huge teams from Google and Apple talk here. And yeah, but what about cross-silo FL, where the clients are now organizations? So this is, in my opinion, not as mainstream. Like Mika said, research kind of thinks that cross-silo FL has same challenges as cross-device FL. There are not like huge success stories and applications that we hear about as compared to cross-device. And also there's much less industry investment. For example, we don't have big teams working on cross-silo FLs at big companies. Yeah, and so as a result, it's not clear what the exact challenges in this domain are. And sorry, Peter, but here is one very famous paper on FL, and it's like there's this like one section on cross-silo FL. Yeah, so this is the paper, and that I'll talk about. You can alternatively also look at this as like the state of cross-silo FL. And I'll give a teaser today. Hope you can read the paper later. Yeah, so this is the key finding. We see that there is a misalignment in the research and the practice of cross-silo FL. So as you can see, like here, there were a lot of interviewee subjects who talked about awareness as a major challenge, but it's not at all mentioned in papers. It probably is not like a researchy topic, but if you can see, like infrastructure is also heavily discussed in our interviews, but not so much in abstracts, which makes us think that there is misalignment. So the way we do the study is we recruited 21 subjects, and these are like experts. A lot of them are from client organizations like finance, banks, and healthcare institutes. We also interviewed a lot of platform developers who are developing platforms for cross-silo or FL in general. And we also have researchers who work in industry for cross-silo FL. So yeah, the backgrounds are very diverse. They go from statistics, public health, oncology, of course, and banks, etc. There are different kinds of organizations. Yeah, and one limitation is that a lot of these are US focused, but we did talk to some subjects who are collaborating within continents. Yeah, so I'm going to divide the finding according to the stage, but the stage is it's like rough division, not exact. So ideation is when like their client organizations are even like thinking about using FL as a solution. And here, of course, like awareness and costs are the major challenges. So a lot of times, we had people say that the systems are working perfectly, so why should I use cross-silo FL? Because it comes with its own costs. And another thing is like if the organization itself is not cross-silo heavy, then they might, and there are like some researchers who see that cross-silo FL is a solution, but then like the organization is not, that interested. But on the positive side, there are platforms. I'm not sure if Flower is doing it, but there are platforms which take care of contracting, deployment, and all the organizational things that come with having multiple parties. I think that is a very big plus. Yeah, now moving to the prototyping stage. This is where there are some people in the organization who are trying to show that cross-silo FL is a viable solution, so they're developing a proof of concept. And here, even in the prototyping stage, but also later on in other stages, we saw that data quantity was something that was way more talked about than the quality. So they assume that they will obviously collaborate with people who give them with organizations with complementary data, but then data quantity is what they want to focus on. And during the prototyping stage, to deal with data scarcity, they usually go for public and synthetic data. Yeah, the next stage is evaluation stage. We're trying to see if the FL system is accurate, private, and so on. And here, this person was really annoyed because everybody compared the system to centralized system, but centralized system is not a solution because of the constraints, data constraints, and etc. Maybe some papers which do this kind of comparison are to be blamed, or I don't know.
Second reviewer is to be blamed.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a little bit of maybe a hot take that these organizations, a lot of the clients that we talked to, they relied a lot on legal contracts as a means of trust. And they cared about memorization leakage, but they didn't so much care about the other fancy attacks that people could, or the clients could do. So contracts played a huge role. And these contracts, they lay down the training system or the training pipeline and et cetera, et cetera. These contracts can be really broad. And we also talked to some clients who worked cross-continent. So the collaboration was across continents. And there, it was very difficult for them to abide to all the privacy regulations because they vary according to region. Yeah, and here we also saw that incentives sort of restrict network diversity, business thinking plays a huge role in these decisions, and organizations, they don't want to, they're also competing with the other organizations, right? So they don't want unfair advantage, and as we saw yesterday also that the clients with the least data are to be benefited the most from such a collaboration. So usually collaborations happen between organizations of similar stature or something, or at least who benefit equally. Yeah, and there are lots of data valuation algorithms in the literature, but they have some issues. One is that people think of data valuations as the same as data attribution, but data valuation in this context is to be done pre-model training. And another thing is that usually there are no specialized data valuation algorithms for cross-silos, so it's just you use the similar ones as data attribution, and those are per query, per data sample. But here, they don't need something that granular. And yeah, and these decisions are usually made before the contract itself, so these algorithms don't make much sense here. The next stage is the deployment stage, wherein you are starting to train the FL system, and or you've deployed it. And these systems, they require maintenance after deployment. So one thing that we saw from the people that we talked to was that they wanted flexible frameworks of model ownership. So they wanted, this is based on incentives. So if I contributed the most, I want to also own the model the most and somehow use it the most. And now with LLM era, maybe inference is also becoming, usage is also becoming something that you can play with. And continual model updation is harder in FL. So it could be that data keeps coming in and you want to update your model, but that's harder because now you have contracts. So maybe some metric was listed in the contract, and after model updation, who knows how the model changed, so the metric is no longer satisfied. So due to issues like this, and also you need approval from multiple parties, so this continual model updation is becoming a challenge. And yeah, almost everybody mentioned the need for better software because I guess writing this software is kind of hard. So they wanted infrastructural support and debugging support and all of that, both in prototyping stage and in deployment stage. And I think Flower or NVIDIA Flare kind of help with that. Yeah, and now maybe some insights on the gap between research and practice. So yeah, I think it's hard to lay out like a clear set of priority or like challenges in this field because like it's so interdisciplinary to begin with. And cross-silo FL has way less investment, so it's hard to like list out practical challenges. And so here, this person is saying that probably a small company with no influence and no big standing won't be able to do this. It needs like probably 2 big banks if they can settle out their incentives. And yeah, literature often conflates cross-silo FL with cross-device. Here, the person is saying that they hope it was named something else. Because the challenges are very different. So just a little bit about future directions. One interesting thing that I thought was like clients wanted opt-out guarantees. So if tomorrow I feel that I no longer want to be a part of the coalition, then can I just opt out and be guaranteed that the trained model is no longer using my data? And then there are some marketplaces now, but they were also interested in data marketplaces where data owners can interact. So maybe to develop some policy or some valuation. And yeah, as Mika was also mentioning, like some standardization would be nice because because the applications are so diverse, everybody's starting from scratch, like when they build the contract or when they design the system and so on, or the workflow. So some standardization here would be nice. And awareness, like I think I saw a lot of the talks were related to the things that I mentioned, so probably there is research, but there's not much awareness because it's so interdisciplinary. So I think it would be good if researchers and practitioners can talk more. Yeah, and infrastructure code, post-deployment maintenance, the questions that I mentioned earlier, I think they're all relevant. Yeah, so to end, like cross-device FL, I did not mention cross-silo. Cross-silo FL is a lot about humans and business, so we also need to keep this in mind. Yeah, and thank you, that's it. I usually work on privacy, safety, security for AI models, if I want to talk to that. Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick question for an algorithms theory audience. What would you say would be the thing that this community can work on to address some of these challenges or a challenge?
Maybe something about opt-out guarantees or like pre-model training valuation. Yeah, I think
these
those
are algorithmic questions.
Yeah.
Question.
So a question, the valuation thing that you touched on, how are people doing valuation without training here? They still need to do some toy training or what?
Right, I think they usually just look at the domain of the data and the quantity of the data.
Okay.
But they're not doing it at a granular level, especially, and also because like most of the algorithms are post-training compensation algorithms.
Yeah. And when you said that a lot of these people are less concerned about heterogeneity and more about the quantity, is it because these applications are homogeneous themselves?
No. It's because they will reach out to partners who have the kind of data that they want.
They already know most.
Yeah.
Also, you clarified that's in the prototyping, the exploration stage, right?
Right.
They're not yet worried about quality yet, they're still exploring.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure you have some. I would just maybe add, in terms of valuation, one model that has some, application, I don't know how popular it really is, but is you evaluate their data by getting a sample of it, and you have your experts look. And they basically share samples, right?
Yeah, and synthetic data can also help there.
Yeah, I mean, there's, of course, a lot of talk, but yet kind of behind-the-scenes nervousness around that, I think. But yeah, I'm hopeful. One question I had is, did you reach out to other decision makers? I mean, you say it's a lot of humans in business, 100%. And I'm wondering, were you able to get a hold of, legal business executive types who might give you their take? Or were you, I mean, were you able to try that?
We didn't interact with legal people who are involved in the legal side of this, but and that's mostly because I think the coalitions were such that they didn't themselves have legal parties or something in the picture, or like it was like 1 or 2 employees in the organization that we didn't get to talk to, but we did talk to business executives. Yeah.
One more related question. So, did you sense there's a gap between the people's concerns about privacy in this space versus the models people are studying in like this space?
In cross-device, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of focus on the contracts, and that's maybe also because of the state, like because of the evolution of the field of cross-silo FL. Yeah.
Yeah, but for instance, I've talked to some healthcare people and they don't necessarily care about the epsilon and delta, but they want to really be compliant with like the HIPAA before releasing the
Right.
data.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
some of them are more forward-looking and they still want to guarantee more worst-case things. So.
Yeah, I think the challenge here could be also that the data is less to begin with, and DP and all might make it worse in terms of utility. So they mostly cared about memorization, but I don't know if I don't remember if they already implemented solutions for those. And of course, like satisfying regulations or something that they cared about.
So in my experience, a lot of the guarantees that people want is, I want to be able to find the violation and have someone to sue. And if I know those 2 things, cool, let's go. Because, and you have to have deep enough pockets that it's worth suing you. Right. I mean, even InfoSec officers, the number one thing they're going to look for when they're going to try to approve a workload like this is, do we know who we get to sue? And then, can we detect it?
That's actually a plus for them if they get to sue.
All right, we have to break for lunch. Let's thank Chhavi again.
Thank you.
Please come back at 1:30. We're going to restart, and Om's talk is not going to be recorded, and the panel is not going to be recorded. So please inform your colleagues or friends who